Right now, you're aware of yourself reading this. You know you exist. You can imagine tomorrow, feel regret about yesterday, and wonder what other people are thinking. No other animal on Earth does this. This ability to step outside your own mind didn't appear slowly. It exploded. Around 200,000 years ago, the human brain tripled in size almost overnight, and with it came language, art, music, and religion, all at once. Scientists still have no explanation for it. But there's one theory, and it starts with something growing in a pile of cow poop on the African savanna. In 1992, an ethnobotanist named Terence McKenna published a book called Food of the Gods. His argument was simple. As Africa dried out, our ancestors were pushed out of the forests and onto open grasslands. They followed herds of wild cattle to survive, and growing out of those cattle's poop was Psilocybin cubensis, the most common magic mushroom on Earth. McKenna argued that when our ancestors ate those mushrooms, something happened to their brains that had never happened before. Regions that had never talked to each other started connecting. New thoughts became possible. Thoughts no animal had ever had. He called it the Stoned Ape Theory. The scientific community laughed at him for 30 years. Then the brain scanners caught up. In 2012, a neuroscientist named Carhart-Harris at Imperial College London put people on psilocybin and put them in a brain scanner. What he found shocked the field. Your brain has a default setting, a background program that runs constantly, quietly managing one thing above everything else. Your sense of self, your internal voice, the story you tell yourself about who you are. Neuroscientists call it the default mode network. On psilocybin, it doesn't slow down. It shuts off completely. And the moment it does, something remarkable happens. Brain regions that normally never communicate, the visual cortex, the memory centers, the emotional processing areas, suddenly start firing together. Connections form that have never existed before. The brain doesn't just change what it's thinking, it changes how it's capable of thinking. Carhart-Harris called it hyperconnectivity. In plain English, the walls come down and every room in the building connects at once. Now think about what that means for an early human, an ancestor who had never experienced abstract thought, who had no concept of yesterday or tomorrow, who existed only in the immediate moment like every other animal on Earth. Then they eat something growing out of the ground, and for the first time, their brain makes connections it has never made. They see patterns. They imagine things that don't exist yet. They look up at the stars and wonder what they are. That moment, whenever it first happened, may be the most important moment in human history. In 2006, a pharmacologist named Roland Griffiths at Johns Hopkins University gave psilocybin to people who had never taken a psychedelic in their lives. 14 months later, 2/3 of them still ranked it as one of the most meaningful experiences they'd ever had. Many described something science had no words for, a complete dissolving of the boundary between themselves and everything else, a feeling that everything, the trees, the sky, other people, was made of the same thing. Griffiths named his paper exactly what it was. Psilocybin can occasion mystical-type experiences having substantial and sustained personal meaning and spiritual significance. That's not a blog post. That's a peer-reviewed title at Johns Hopkins. In 2017, mycologist Paul Stamets stood in front of a room full of researchers at the Psychedelic Science Conference and connected the final dot. Psilocybin, he explained, stimulates the production of nerve growth factors, proteins that literally build new neural connections. The brain doesn't just behave differently on psilocybin, it physically rewires. New pathways form. Some of them stick. Stamets looked at the audience and said it plainly. There was a sudden doubling of the human brain 200,000 years ago. I suggest to you that Terence was right. If he is, you'd expect to find evidence of this relationship everywhere humans have ever lived. And that's exactly what we found. 12,000 years ago, cave paintings in Australia and cave paintings in Tanzania shared an identical symbol, a human figure with a mushroom-shaped head. Two civilizations separated by an ocean, who had never met, drew the same thing. When researchers showed the symbol to living shamans in Tanzania, they recognized it immediately. It was the mushroom experience. 9,000 years ago, a shaman in what is now the Algerian Sahara painted the same image on a cave wall. Back then, it was a green savanna. The U.S. Forest Service has cited it as the oldest known depiction of psychoactive mushroom use on Earth. 3,000 years ago, people across Guatemala, Mexico, and El Salvador were carving mushrooms out of stone and burying them with their dead. Someone carved a mushroom out of stone 3,000 years ago and buried it with their dead. That's not accidental. That's a cult. The ancient Greeks called their version the kykeon, a sacred drink consumed at a ritual that ran for nearly 2,000 years. Plato drank it. Cicero drank it. Everyone who came out said the same thing. They had lost their fear of death. In 1978, Albert Hofmann, the chemist who invented LSD, analyzed the ancient recipe and concluded it contained ergot, a fungus with effects nearly identical to LSD. For 2,000 years, the most celebrated minds in Western civilization were drinking psychedelics as a religious sacrament. Every one of these cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, was independently accessing the same experience. The same dissolution of self, the same feeling of connection to something larger, the same thing Carhart-Harris measured in a brain scanner in 2012. Now, mainstream science hasn't accepted McKenna's theory. Most researchers call it too simple, too convenient. McKenna himself admitted it was partly, in his words, conscious propaganda, designed to make people see psychedelics as ancient and natural rather than dangerous and alien. But here's what nobody disputes. The brain expansion happened. It was fast. Psilocybin demonstrably rewires the brain in exactly the ways McKenna described. New connections, new thoughts, new ways of being human. The question he was asking isn't settled. It's just uncomfortable. The mushrooms were everywhere, the savanna was covered in them, and our ancestors were walking through it hungry, following the cattle with no idea what they were about to eat. Now, I'm not condoning the use of psychedelics, but the effects that they may have had on mankind is profound.